Let's talk about King Charles and Queen Camilla, because they're currently in Kenya on a 4-day state visit. Back in the good old days, these tours were seen as joyous occasions that united people across the globe. But nowadays, of course, they've been hijacked by moaning liberals who want the King to apologise for Britain's colonial past. So, despite all the naysayers, I know the trip will be a success. But of course, we've got to be careful that King Charles doesn't get too carried away and start promising all sorts of reparations. Because, I mean, after all, unless he's talking about giving him some of his own money, I don't want him giving us any of our money away. Joining me now, though, is talkTV's royal correspondent, Monsieur Rupert Bell. Rupert, what a delight to see you. Welcome to the new independent republic. I don't think you've been on since we've been here, have you?
No, a glamorous set you have, Mike.
Very
I hope you're
glamorous.
coping with it all right.
Listen, I mean, glamour is my middle name, as you know, Rupert. And so I'm sorry that I've had to take your budget away from you, so you weren't able to travel with the King and Queen Camilla to Kenya, because it's all been spent on my studio. But anyway, never mind. He's not surely going to go there and start apologising, is he?
No, I don't think he is. And I'm not sure that the Kenyans want that to that degree, because clearly there will be references to the past. Britain's link is very close, and it's been a very strong one in recent years. Of course, you look back to the Mau Mau problems in the 50s and 60s. Yes, it was a pretty uncomfortable time, but it was also uncomfortable for the Kenyans as well. So they are really, the point of this is very much to try and look forward, because the population of Kenya is a very young one, and this is an important trip for Britain and the King and Queen as his first overstate visit outside of Europe. Of course, he's been to France and that delayed trip to Germany, to France recently. So in many ways, this is an important element of soft power, and making sure that Britain have strong political roots in Africa, where, of course, there's been a lot of increased activity from Russia and China trying to exert power over various countries within the state of Africa, so the continent of Africa. So it's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out, but I don't expect him to apologise. I expect him probably to reference it, but not in any way that will suggest that he's about to get the checkbook out.
Well, no, quite, because we do hear, don't we, if we listen to all the wrong people, particularly in this country, that the Commonwealth is sort of teetering very much at the end of its life and probably won't exist much longer anyway, because all of these countries don't wish it to be there. But that's not really true, is it?
No, it's not true. The issue really at stake is which country, who's the head of state. It doesn't preclude you from being in the Commonwealth. You know, Barbados now no longer have this country as the head of state from the King, but they still are members of the Commonwealth. So the institution is still viable. And I think that's the important aspect of it. You know, South Africa is part of the Commonwealth. You know, so you could see that the institution has a role to play on a global scale. And that's the significance of the Commonwealth. And that's why the significance of this state visit is important. Kenya is perceived to be politically sound, has a burgeoning democracy, and so therefore, from that point of view, it makes total sense. And the president of Kenya will be at pains to point out the links between Britain and Kenya and the important aspects of the ties between the two countries, which, in terms of the royal family, of course, we know is an extensive one. The Queen, the late Queen, was there when she found out that her father died, and that back in 1951. So you actually look back, and Prince Charles first went there in 1971, the same year as his sister went there. So you actually see that Kenya is an important part of the royal family's life and their role within Kenya as well. They see it as an important country to be making a visit like this to.
Absolutely right. I think we've got some live pictures coming in from Kenya, which we'll be able to show you very shortly, because I think he's laying a wreath, paying their respects at the tomb of the unknown warrior. A red carpet welcome by President William Ruto on the first day of the visit, because I think that's the other thing that people concern themselves with, it seems to me, Rupert, that a lot of this talk of our colonial past and our, empire and the heritage of history and all of that, whereby, people don't want to buy a poppy, they don't want to commemorate Armistice Day. I mean, very clearly, there was a time, certainly during the two world wars, where the Commonwealth was very much part of the British Armed Forces and the Allies when they were fighting off the evils of the Nazis and also in the First World War.
Yeah, and actually the ties between Kenya and Britain are very strong. The British Army use parts of Kenya for military exercises. There is a huge economic link between the two countries as well. And you think from a tourism point of view, but also on a trade perspective as well. So there are very strong links. And that's the importance of the Commonwealth. And in the post-Brexit environment, the Commonwealth is a very important institution for Britain to exert its influence outside the European Union. And that's the important nature of it. So that it does have a place to play. But of course, people are always going to be bringing up maybe the more complicated parts of it. And no one's going to say that it wasn't without its faults. But ultimately, Kenya wants to look forward now and say, and not sort of dwell on the past, but actually try and make it a great positive for not only for Kenya, but their links with Britain, that they do have a place in the modern Kenya, which, as I say, has a very young population. I think something like maybe 70, 80% are under 40. So that gives you an indication of where their country now is wanting to help the young and make it a vibrant country with a role to play, not only within the Commonwealth, but as an influence within the continent of Africa.
Absolutely right. Well, that'll be bad news for the old Republican lot, won't it, who are once again planning, apparently, some kind of demo at the state opening of Parliament. But listen, Rupert, great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. We can see the pictures there of Charles and Camilla, King Charles and Queen Camilla, we should say, on their state visit, first part of it over in Kenya, paying respects at the tomb of the unknown warrior. Let's